Hey, remember Breath of the Wild? Well, we're back again, continuing the epic tale of Hyrule at some point in the fucked up timeline, and this time God has finally seized Link's sinful hand. Oh, dude. And I guess you can build shit and whatever. Hyrule has changed. Kind of. Let's be real. There are some tweaks to villages, and there are sky islands, and a whole heaping pile of fucking nothing underground, but is anything substantially different? No, not really. Like, even our century-old friends are still kicking. Anyway, just like in Breath of the Wild, shit is way too open. Like, way too open. And I feel like that makes most areas of the game really uninteresting, by virtue of needing to be approachable from any which way. Nothing can really stand out or be unique because everything kinda needs to be the same, with only few and far between truly interesting moments of gameplay, at least when it comes to exploration and stuff. Not saying we should go back to strictly linear, but there's gotta be a balance to be struck here, right? Like, a broad, open environment with certain terrain or obstacles that you can get past later as you progress through the game, like a classic Zelda title, but less restrictive. Maybe the map could be fairly open and broadly explorable, but dungeons are more of a traditional, controlled experience. Maybe you can access different areas of the map through a dungeon, or maybe there are multiple exits or entrances to any given dungeon, so you could jump in and out and progress through it in bits as you see fit. Maybe these only open up to you after you hit a certain plot beat in the dungeon, or get a specific item from it, or some other place. I don't know, something like that. And the items don't even need to necessarily add a whole new functionality. That'd be great, of course, but they could also just enhance or augment how you explore normally. Like, for example, a grappling hook could help you climb or limit how far you slip down. Better than the damn froggy suit, which frankly takes way too much time to even get for what it's worth. What a pain in the ass. Combat still sucks. That said, it's really cool to be able to build weapons to surpass Metal Gear. After all, what better way to fight these big nuts? Are you fucking kidding me? Like, the game centers around one specific mechanic, and way too much, might I add. But your big encounters can just say, nah, I don't feel like it. What the fuck is that? Unless you've gone out of your way to get a damn PhD in this one specific fucking game, you probably haven't figured out the exploits to get around this mechanic, which doesn't feel like the intended experience. But, like, the intended experience seems to suck ass, so what do I know? Listen, I'm not saying you should be able to glue a knife to a wheel and expect to kill a fucking dragon with it, but in a game allegedly so focused on giving you endless freedom, it just feels wild that they wouldn't give you the freedom to try. If you die, whatever, you die, but you should be able to experiment with whatever you want. Wouldn't it be better if the bits you build with had a durability stat, and your machine got chipped away at slowly over the course of a battle? Or if the big monsters could just target parts and smack them off one at a time? Even that feels like it's at least built to accommodate the mechanic. As it stands, it feels like the combat encounters and building are too disparate, and there wasn't much thought put into how they mesh together. Which is a shame, because let me tell you, Link's skill set still sucks too bad to make me want to wail on him silly style. And speaking of Link's abilities, they're pretty boring. Overall, despite the sheer volume of things you can grab and move around, Link doesn't actually have that many ways of interacting with things. Solving puzzles in this game, more often than not, is just a matter of gluing things together. That, or getting from point A to point B, which usually doesn't ask you to figure anything out. Can you glue a rocket to a shield? Can you build a hoverbike? Congratulations, you've beaten Tears of the Kingdom. Ascend is there. It's not the most engaging thing, and it slows gameplay to a complete fucking stop more often than not. And its use case is so contrived, it feels like they kind of just ran out of ideas. It feels like a mechanic born more out of traversal convenience than any consideration of whether it was interesting or fun. Rewind is okay. It's, I don't know. It's okay. Fuse and Ultra Hand are essentially the same thing. One's just for weapons, and the other is for everything else. I feel like this could have been consolidated into one thing, with maybe one button fusing your weapon and another fusing it to nearby objects. And, like, as convenient as auto build is, could it not have just been an upgrade to Ultra Hand? It is just that, but streamlined. Let's be real, it's the same thing. The best thing I can say about Fuse is that it solves weapon durability, sort of, but it does nothing to address weapons never feeling important or special at all. And really, the gimmick is amusing, but once the novelty wears off, you'll probably just stick to the same handful of things that work for you. Or at least that's how it was for me. I don't know, I can't tell you what to do. You're your own person. Believe in yourself. But, Anyway, that critique can really be applied to pretty much everything in the game. Let me explain. Everything is by necessity of similar or equal value, which makes everything feel pretty worthless ultimately, thereby making it pretty unsatisfying to go out and collect things, if not downright annoying sometimes. It just gets really exhausting when you know everything you're going to encounter in this game is either some shitty weapon, another goddamn shrine, or fucking Koroks. What did you do with the Deku scrubs, you dingly little bastards? What did you do with them? Anyway, caves are okay in theory. Having some more spaces to explore that restrict your movement and force you to think about how you approach things differently is great, but they don't really do that. Most of them don't do much of anything. Some of them just ask you to smash rocks for 1,000,000 fucking years. And having legendary outfits hidden in some, incredible. But like everything else, the sheer volume and the areas and the quests are so limited, it undercuts how valuable they should feel. There was a solid opportunity to do some world building and tie in older games in a cool and interesting way, all set in unique locales, but you fucked it up! It's just wet drippy rocks 1,000 times over till you get a chest with no pomp or circumstance or until you see another fucking frog. Moving on. Monster bases are cool. It's nice to see Ganon's forces actually doing something, and NPCs having squads to try and fight them is a great addition. It helps sell the fact that something happened in this world, and it's affecting people. Certainly better than bokoblins just minding their own business in silly little tree houses. Look at them. Fucking idiots. But yeah, enemy tactics and whatever are way better this time around. There's better variety, you encounter them in more circumstances, they have strongholds and ride taluses, and some even have armor that you do have to break. But the rest of the combat and your general lack of meaningful abilities does a lot to hold back these improvements. Like, yeah, the armor does give you a bit of a roadblock, but it doesn't really change how you interact with them, just how you prioritize who you're fighting. And even that doesn't really change much. Once their armor's gone, it's back to basics again. Speaking of armor, some of Link's armors have more interesting passive abilities, like the diving control, but they're real few and far between. The rest remain kind of boring, and none give you any active abilities, so you wind up with 1,000,000 sets of armor to scroll through with negligible differences, and who's got the time? What is this UI? Why am I scrolling so much? What? Who? Come on, streamline something! I just... what happened to all the Sheikah stuff? I'm like... Am I just fucking blind? Where the... No explanation, completely irrelevant, they're just fucking gone. Towers, divine beasts, I think one person mentions the bird thing once? Even hundreds of shrines, just completely fucking gone, and nobody seems to have noticed anything, or think it's weird. And it's all just done to make room for the Zonai shit, which is exactly the same, just... I don't know, older, I guess. Anyway, speaking of the shrines, wouldn't it be better if there were fewer of the little mini-trials dotted around in favor of having bigger, more thought-out dungeons to explore and solve puzzles within? I'd rather come across a properly designed location with a single substantial reward, rather than go glue some sticks together in 4 different ones just to get the same fucking thing over and over again. What few good puzzles there are seem to be more or less exclusive to the shrines, which leaves the temples rather lacking. I sure felt a lot of, boy howdy, I go and hit this thing with a companion, shocking. Oh, I make a ramp for this one? What a fucking mind-bending puzzle, I can't believe it. Game of the year, 10 out of 10, blew my tits clean off. The one room in a temple I did get stuck in, I didn't even really get stuck. I just didn't see whatever it was they wanted me to do, so I just made a hover bike and fucking skipped it. But it didn't matter. It didn't ask me to figure anything out. It didn't challenge me. It just asked me to go from point A to point B. And if there was a creative or fun way of doing that, it wasn't as clear as just going past it. And if there wasn't, then congratulations, you made a worthless room. And like I said in the Breath of the Wild video, it'd be a lot better if those trial areas or dungeons were built more directly into the world, rather than having a strange disconnect by dropping you into a fucking pocket dimension that's indistinguishable from any of the other hundreds of thousands of them. And on the subject of dungeons and them meshing with the environment, as far as the temples are concerned, they do a much better job of that in Tears of the Kingdom than in Breath of the Wild, though they're still kind of lacking in flavor for the most part. Take, for example, the Fire Temple. Like, okay, cool, I guess it's the ancient city of Garandia. It's built into the normal environment, though in like the most isolated possible way. Like, it could tie together Death Mountain and the depths a bit more seamlessly, maybe have it connected directly to the underside of the mountain itself instead of just standing alone at the bottom. It is there. The set pieces are neat. There's not really any payoff to anything, though. What the hell is any of this shit? A mine, I guess? Maybe? And the fact that it's discovered doesn't seem to blow anybody's fucking mind the way it should. I guess if somebody just dug further down, they would have come across it eventually, so, like, I don't know. It's a big old so fucking what, just like much of the rest of it. But, stepping back a little bit, if nothing else, the quests leading up to the temples are a huge improvement. Actually feels like there are some real tangible stakes here, for the most part. The Goron's sudden drug epidemic, no, I'm not really sure that landed. It was a bit of an odd choice. Let's, yeah. A destructive blizzard, a downpouring of toxic sludge, an undead blight. Hell yeah, brother, sign me up. Those sound like real problems in need of solving. Definitely a step up from, oh, gee whiz. That robot sure is stomping really hard, but like, it's way over there. So, and whatever the fuck the bird thing was doing, I think it was just kind of vibing. Were we the bad guys in that one? Anyway, back to the subject at hand. Of these quests, personally, I like the water temples the most. I know, hold your applause. I know, crazy news. Water temple wins something. Insane. It felt the most complete, the most thought out, the most like following a plot thread in a Zelda game, and it still worked just fine in an open setting. Having to discover the problem, talk to an NPC, put together the lore to get a hint, find a key item, go to a special location and actually use the key item, open up a long hidden place underwater and solve some puzzles there, felt great. But then you just go up to the sky and everything's the fucking same again, so who cares? As for the actual temple itself, I think the Lightning Temple takes it. Partly because it's the only one that actually was a temple. You were in one contained place, and it felt the most grounded, like it belonged in the world that it was a part of. It inspired me to think of what purpose it might have once had, how it could have been built, and when. It fulfilled, I think, what is normally a Zelda game's objective with its setting. We do go underground and explore some ancient civilization stuff, so that's neat. I feel like I can confidently say that Nintendo stole that from my last video, so they'll be hearing from my lawyer. Anyway, we learn precious little about the Zonai and Hyrule's history, kinda. There's very little in terms of any quest lines or anything of any real substance that goes into that. And what little we do seems to kind of conflict with previous games, so that's confusing. Also, how many times do we need to have a long-lost civilization who had advanced technology to pop up and, you know, disappear and whatever? How many times is that now? 5, 6, 700? And what do you mean that even the Zonai of 10,000 years ago didn't even fucking make this technology? This happened to them twice? Fuck off, dude. Story beats are potentially out of order, which was an issue in Breath of the Wild as well, but I feel like it's even worse here. Everything relevant already happened long ago, and the few things we as a player actually interact with in the present feel very samey and yield exactly zero new information, save for a few bits and pieces that barely even act as a garnish, like the Stormwind arc. Alright? You're not going to expand on that? Sounds like a big deal, but... Okay, Ring Ruins? Okay, really only relevant for one beat in one quest. Okay, fine. Also, from how much effort was put into Toro's design, I figured he was going to be way more important. Like, am I crazy here? Now, I understand that they wanted you to be able to tackle the main tasks in any order you want, which is great. I'm fully on board for that. But the way they ensure you can do that without messing up the story is to make the conclusion to every single one of these quests literally the exact fucking same. Tell me about the secret stones and imprisoning war one more fucking time. I dare you. I dare you! I feel like they could have done something like, every time you clear a main temple, it activates a flag or a switch in the background of the game, and once you flip 2, a major event happens elsewhere in the world, like maybe things get worse or change in the other 2 that you haven't gotten to yet, or maybe Ganon's forces start converging on the castle or surging out of the chasm, so now you have to go and save Lookout Landing. Events that happen on the path of the story, as a result of it. Not just things kind of passively happening in case you decide you want to go have a look. Something to exemplify the journey you've been on. Things happening as a result of it, to make you feel like things are progressing and changing. Speaking of things changing, no story beat does anything to expand the plot. Nothing changes your understanding of the world or anything in it except for one cutscene where Zelda yummies down on a rock. You help out the regions, their crisis ends, but nothing new opens up to you as a result. You don't get any new plot beats or anything. The closest you get along the critical path is the revelation that the 5th stage isn't accounted for, which isn't really news to the player by then. Even Ganon's projection says some shit like, I guess the stones don't show you everything. And then he proceeds to just tell you the same fucking shit again. Like, okay, He's got an army. He beat the sages. He was a bad guy. I get it. Now, you could argue that the point of Zelda was never to have a rich lore or an intricate world. I would almost disagree, but I can't deny that the franchise comes from a time when world building wasn't really a thing in games. So the primary focus, presumably, has always been making an engaging and fun game. I get that. However, the series has kind of slowly become more story-focused as time went on, and as it did so, world building and lore became more important. I feel like the vague approach to storytelling and how things connect to previous titles and the lore in general only serves to make things feel strange. Like it's trying to be two things at once and not really nailing either. Now, do I think that Zelda games should be so deep in their reliance on a continuity that it makes future titles inaccessible to newcomers? No. That'd be stupid. But there's gotta be a middle ground that makes the story more engaging and is satisfying for players with a better understanding of context if they're familiar with the other titles in the series. Now, listen, I used to be a Zelda timeline denier, but I've fallen down a bit of a rabbit hole recently, and apparently even old interviews and box art seems to have always alluded to a continuity of some kind, and I can't really say it doesn't work outright. It does. Or, well, it did, anyway. The Wild games really fucked that up. From what I understand, Ocarina of Time was supposed to be the imprisoning war, but now apparently it happened around the founding of Hyrule, or as some theories say, Hyrule got fucked and then founded again, so this would be the second imprisoning war, or some shit. I don't know, man. But like, huge events aside, even small details throw a wrench into things, like Ganondorf's little headpiece thingy. They seem to try to give that a backstory, but if Ganondorf was down there the whole time, then what about the other iterations of him? If they were just reincarnations of him, why have the headpiece? If it's the same one, why is he both sealed and not sealed? If it's basically a round 2 of Ganondorf, where did it disappear to? Is it Ganondorf post Wind Waker when the gem thing got smashed? So he's just got a new one? And maybe it's not a huge detail, but it certainly feels like they tried to make it one. Anyway, to summarize, an issue that I found with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom is that it simultaneously doesn't give a shit about the lore of previous games and still tries to tie them in very directly, even reusing locations from old games as if to imply a single continuous Hyrule. But like I described before, throwing the timeline completely out of whack, so which is it? Is it connected or isn't it? Much like I felt a weird disconnect from the story as I played it, the game itself feels like it's kind of estranged from the rest of the series in a way that none of the other titles seem to suffer from. And that's not because the older games were explicitly tying together the timeline or continuing from older games, except for like a handful of them, but they didn't really go out of their way to disrupt things either, like it feels like these ones do. All that said though, the biggest and most glaring issue with Tears of the Kingdom for me was how it linked to Breath of the Wild. This game has absolutely no identity of its own. Nothing stands out from its predecessor aside from being able to build stuff, which, while a novelty, doesn't really have much personality. It feels like Breath of the Wild was a tech demo and Tears of the Kingdom was the game they actually wanted to make. Not just because it's mechanically similar or because it shares the same map or engine or blah 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 blah. The story is exactly the same. Zelda disappears, Link is injured and loses his powers, the Master Sword is damaged and lost, and evil power surges out from underneath Hyrule Castle. Each region has an isolated problem and in each of them a representative helps you, and you hear from a long dead champion who failed to stop Ganon long ago. Even the characters who help you are all the same. Oh my god, Teba got robbed! Speaking of your funny little friends and another idea that Nintendo definitely stole from me, they do actually show up to help you later in the game, which is great, cinematic, whatever, but it still rings a little hollow since, honestly, they should have been with you the whole time. This would have worked fine in Breath of the Wild, but in this one, and this is one of the very few minor changes, the sages are as much of a driving force in this fight as Link is. You help them out, and then they say, thanks bud, and stay behind in their own towns doing dick until 2 parts in the story towards the end. Like, thanks guys, real big help. Glad you awoke your sage powers, fucking lazy ass piece of shit. You kind of have companions, but Nintendo had to go and fuck that up by having them fart out a blue clone, which just kind of feels like a stupid cop-out. Also, activating their abilities fucking sucks. There had to be a better way to do this. Like, why the fuck does Riju, a melee character, have a ranged ability? Oh yeah, let me just waddle up real close to this dude I'm trying to shoot at range so I can grab this stupid bitch to have her throw lightning and an arrow. How is she better at hitting a small, rapidly moving projectile than a stationary target? Come on, bro. Anyway, at the end of the day, it's hard to think of fixes for this game because a lot of its issues are Breath of the Wild's issues. Even if you address the mechanical, it's a nearly one-to-one rehash of its predecessor, which I don't think they could really do anything about without creating something entirely different. So even if you mix up the gameplay, the rest of the game doesn't really have any identity of its own. Thanks for watching. This was Tears of the Kingdom Patchwork. You know, I mean, you watched it. You know what it is. You know what the show is at this point. It's just me. I take things that I honestly, things that I like for the most part, and kind of break them down into things that I think could be better. But again, I mean, you watched it. Anyway, like, comment, and subscribe. You can check out my Patreon. I'm actually putting stuff up there. The patrons got advanced warning of this one. And I'm putting up my comic. Follow Blue Sky. Wait, I already... Oh no. Oh no!